Oh, cool. I think we've got a number of people on this call. I think why don't we go ahead and get started? If anyone joins as we're going, they're of course more than welcome to ask questions and so on. But welcome everyone. My name is Dan Sheffield. I am the director of the Shamin and Bijan Mossavar-Rahmani Center for Iran and Persian Gulf Studies here at Princeton University. This is my first year directing the center, and I am so thrilled to see so much interest in applying for our postdoc program. The postdoc program at the Mossavar-Rahmani Center is the sort of the lifeblood of the center. We have a robust group of postdocs who work on all sorts of topics which relate to modern Iran, its history, its anthropology, its politics, its religion, its arts, its literature, and in so many other aspects that makes this center what it is. We have an incredibly lively group of postdocs who enrich each other's research and who enrich the programming of the center, my own work here. It's really an exciting place to be. And I'm very excited to be talking to you guys about all the amazing work that you are doing and to let you know a little bit about the process for applying to become a postdoctoral research associate or an affiliate of our center. So what I want to do primarily with this meeting is just to provide a space for you guys to ask questions about the application process. I get a lot of emails. I recognize a few of your names from those emails asking questions about how the application ought to be structured, or asking sort of specific questions about whether or not it makes sense to sort of structure, to phrase something in the application in a certain way. And I thought rather than responding to all of those emails individually, we could have an opportunity to sort of meet on Zoom and just sort of talk through some of those questions which you've thought of and some of those questions which your colleagues have thought of in order to come up with, help you come up with ideas that you think will work best for your application. But before I open up the floor to your questions, I just thought I would start by saying a few things about the center. The Mossavar-Rahmani Center is a physical space here on Princeton's campus. We're located in a very sort of central part of the campus, and the fellowship that you're applying to at the Mossavar-Rahmani Center is indeed a residential fellowship, which means that we expect the postdocs, should they be accepted to our fellowship, to move to the Princeton area and to plan to be present here on campus for at least 4 days during the 4 days a week during the academic year. At the center, we host many programs in the forms of talks, workshops, artistic events, panels with various other units on campus, and this is sort of a major aspect of the postdoc's life, to attend these events, to interact with our speakers, and to get to know the people who come through here. So we are now about 2 weeks away from the deadline for the application to the Iran Center. Basically, our applications will be due on November the 3rd, which means you have a couple of weeks to sort of craft your application materials before they need to be submitted in their final form. What we ask for in terms of the postdoc application is, I think, pretty typical for what other postdocs and other early career academic jobs are looking for. Essentially, we ask for a dossier to be submitted, which consists of a cover letter in which you briefly summarize your research proposal, a sort of more fleshed out research proposal in which you describe a project that you would be working on during the period at which you would be resident at Princeton. For almost every applicant for the postdoc, this project almost always consists of a project which is in essence a revision of a dissertation into a book. So for many of our applicants, what the research proposal entails is first outlining the kind of work that you did in your doctoral dissertation, and second, how you plan to go about revising that dissertation, expanding that dissertation into the form of a book. So of course, not it's not necessary that this be the shape of your research proposal, but this is by far the most common form of research proposal. And if people have questions about what makes a successful research proposal, I'm more than happy to talk about that when we move to the Q&A. We ask for an academic CV, similar to what you would find in other job applications, which, among other things, lists your educational history, your publications, conference presentations that you've given, other teaching experience, although this is not a teaching postdoc, anything that is normally included on a CV. We ask for writing samples for most of our applicants. This would be a chapter of a dissertation, but we're more than happy also to read published writing samples and any other recent work. Finally, we ask for contact information for 3 referees. So when one applies, one doesn't necessarily need to have one's rec letters in hand. After you submit your contact information for your referees, we will go ahead and contact those referees to solicit those references. So this is what we ask you to submit by November 3rd. We then at the center will go into a process of reviewing all of the applications which we have received. We have a number of affiliates of our center, as well as members of our center's executive committee, whom we charge with becoming the selection committee for the postdocs each year. They will work with me as director to select a long list, basically, of applicants whom we are interested in possibly interviewing in the future. By December, mid-December, you should know whether or not you have been selected for an interview. Interviews will take place over Zoom. We have not yet scheduled with our interview committee when exactly our interviews will take place, but you can probably anticipate that interviews will take place sometime either in mid-December or in mid-January. And then after interviews take place in mid-January, we decide on those candidates whom we would like to make offers to, so that the process should more or less be in its final stages around the beginning of February, which is when everyone can anticipate to hear whether or not they will be getting an offer from Princeton or not. Just a few words before I open up the floor about some of the specific requirements of the application process. The postdoc, as advertised, requires that the PhD be in hand no earlier than 2023, and should be in hand by the time that the appointment begins. So if you're currently a PhD student, we expect that you will have successfully defended your dissertation by the time that the postdoc appointment begins, which is typically in September of the next academic year. So in this case, we will expect you to have defended your PhD and completed all the requirements for PhD by no later, essentially, than August of 2026, which is 1 month before the postdoc begins. I know especially in this year in which so many things are uncertain at the national level in the United States, and many things have been in flux. There have been questions about visa sponsorship. Right now, our instructions from the university are to proceed as normal, and that is to say that we encourage both US citizens and non-US citizens to apply for the fellowship. Many of our current postdocs have diverse nationalities, Iranian nationals, European nationals, Canadian nationals, US nationals, and this sort of diversity of experience really enriches the life of our center. Basically, as it stands right now, Princeton's Davis International Center has been handling all of the visa cases for our postdocs, and we expect this to continue in the future. I know some of our peer institutions have started restricting application to certain passport holders. That is not the case here at Princeton. We are still encouraging people who hold any passport or indeed who have any sort of nationality situation to apply to the center. Finally, there's one other question that I've been getting quite a lot recently, and that pertains specifically to this year. Some of you who are applying to our postdoc are probably aware that there is also a faculty position in modern Iranian history that is open at Princeton in the Department of Near Eastern Studies. So some have been asking whether it's possible to apply for both the postdoc and for the faculty position, or indeed to apply for our postdoc and any other position at Princeton. And the answer is yes. We encourage all of you to apply for as many positions at Princeton as you think are appropriate for your own field, for your own background. We are more than happy to read your applications with fresh eyes, in spite of the fact that you might have also applied to other postdocs at the university. Finally, we also encourage those who have applied to our postdocs in the past, as long as they're still in that eligibility window, to apply to our postdoc here at the center in subsequent years. We have a limited number of spots that we can award to postdocs in a given year. We often receive, in excess of 50 applications for just a couple of postdoc spots every year, and there are, many wonderful, highly qualified applicants each year for these positions, whom we're unfortunately not able to offer positions to in 1 year, but we hope that those people apply again in the future should another situation arise, and another committee, perhaps some more publications on your side that would enable a committee to pick your application in a subsequent year, even if they hadn't in past years. So I want to reserve most of the time for this session to your questions. So I guess I will open the floor to questions from you guys now. Before I do that, I just thought I would introduce my colleagues who have joined us on this call. We are joined by our center manager, Femke de Ruyter, who can answer a lot of the sort of technical questions. She may have been someone that you've corresponded with on email if you've had specific questions already about the postdoc. She's our sort of point person for any technical inquiries which pertain to the center. We're also joined by our wonderful events coordinator, Allison Cummins, who set up this Zoom call and who sets up all of the talks, the seminars, the workshops, and the events which we have throughout the year. So if anyone has questions about programming at the center, Allison, I'm sure, would be happy to answer any of those questions. So without any further ado, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hands or just turn on your cameras, unmute yourself, and ask those. You also should feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the chat. Yes, Batman.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Professor Sheffield. Thank you so much for this very informative presentation, and also would like to thank your colleagues, Alison Collins and Franke de Ruyter. I have a quick questions regarding reference letters, and I want to know how much time referees do have, after, we submit, our applications to submit the reference letters. And this is the first question. And the second question is actually regarding writing sample. And I want to know, I know that there is only one space, for, uploading that document, but would it be possible to send like a couple of, writing samples in one file, like a PDF file, or not? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Batman. Those are both great questions. As someone who has to write lots of recommendation letters myself, I'm always thankful when recommendation letters are not required for the application to be submitted, because as you know, in some job applications and in some postdoc applications, you as applicant cannot upload your application until the reference letter comes in. That's not the case here, and we, as people who have to submit many recommendation letters ourselves, are pretty understanding if it takes a couple of weeks even for a reference letter to come in after we solicit it. I think we basically expect a reference letter after solicitation to come in within 2 weeks of the date that the solicitation email is sent. But if it doesn't come in at that time, it's not like your application gets thrown out. We send gentle reminders to the referees that we're still waiting on their letters, and give them a few more days to submit the letters. So in other words, there's not a sort of like a hard and fast deadline if the letters don't come in. Sorry, I realize I'm misreading this FAQ a little bit. The deadline for referees ideally should come in 1 week after the disregard what I just said. Should ideally come in 1 week after the applications, but if they haven't come in by that point, we will then move on to reminding the recommenders to submit their letters. So we
do you want me to chime in with the technical aspects of the system?
If you can chime in with the actual application system.
So what happens when you submit your application, it's only when you submit it that the system will send an email to your recommender to upload a recommendation. And in that email, it says their recommendation is due November 10th, which is a week after you submit your application. If, like many applicants, you submit your application to at like 11:50 on November 3rd, I believe the system can take up to 3 days to send that email. So that doesn't provide them a lot of time. I would highly recommend contacting your references and letting them know that you're submitting an application and that technically the deadline for the reference is November 10th. So they can prepare and have it ready to upload by the time they receive the email. But again, as Professor Sheffield mentioned, we are flexible. We will follow up. And, if we do get it past the 10th, we will attach it to your application. Is that clear?
Thank you. Femke, as you might have gathered, things on this system actually differ also in different places at Princeton. So yeah. The second part of your question had to do with submitting multiple writing samples. Is that right? If I remember right.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the sort of sake of our committee, we ask basically that a reasonable amount of writing samples be submitted so that the committee can reasonably be expected to have read what you're submitting. It's occasionally the case that someone will have written 5,000-page books and want to upload all of those with their application. Obviously, in these kinds of cases, it works to their disadvantage because the readers of their files see an enormous writing sample that has been attached to the file and are for various reasons discouraged from actually reading all of what has been submitted. So I mean, I would say that what is often the most effective thing to do is to, for instance, if you're submitting dissertation chapters, to submit one chapter with a brief sort of introduction to where this chapter sits within the overall dissertation, perhaps give some summaries of the chapters that come before and after this chapter so that we have some idea of like what it is doing for the overall dissertation, but exercising some discretion in terms of uploading too much writing. I would say that in general, what we recommend is no longer than 50 pages for a writing sample. If you're someone who's published a lot already, we will of course see that on the CV, and you might refer to some of your publications in your research proposal, as other things that you would like to, perhaps like those who are, really interested in your work to have their attention drawn to. It's probably, not a bad idea to, maintain some kind of a professional website or, an ORCID account. I don't want to say academia.edu because academia.edu's terms have gotten really weird over the last few years. But have some place in which your work that has been published is accessible easily to a broader audience. But if you have published work in journals and so on, if you have the reference on your CV, we will definitely be able to find it, and we'll if it's something that really interests us, we'll read it with interest. Thank you for those questions. They're both really good, Batman. So.
Thank you very much for your answer. Thank
you. I received a question in the chat, which is, how do the expectations for an associate research scholar differ from those of a postdoctoral research associate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is, I think, one of the most frequent points of confusion within the overall application process. Basically, the distinction between a postdoctoral research associate and an associate research scholar has to do with the amount of previous postdoctoral experience the candidate has. And it's something that is largely determined by us at the sort of administrative end rather than you at the applicant's end. I think I'll hand it over to Femke just to sort of explain the administrative difference between these two positions.
Okay, so a postdoctoral, a PDRA, postdoctoral research associate, has less than 3 years postdoctoral experience. So if you received your PhD in 2024 and you received a postdoc position somewhere else, 24 to 25, then you have 1 year of postdoc experience and you'd be appointed as a postdoctoral research associate. If, however, you have 3 years postdoctoral experience, then you are automatically appointed as an associate research scholar. And the difference in there is no difference in expectation. You're here to work on your research project, collaborate with fellows, and engage in the Princeton, community. So there's no difference in expectations. But the ARS rank is one appointment for 3 years, whereas the postdoctoral appointments are 1-year terms that are renewable annually up to 3 years. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you could have up to 3 years as a postdoc here. But with an ARS, you're already appointed for a 3-year term.
And I guess I should say, just to clarify, that this distinction between a PDRA and an ARS is a university-wide distinction, and the fact that we have to phrase the application in this way is basically just to allow some flexibility for people to apply who have, who already have 3 years of postdoctoral experience. So the positions appear separate on paper, but the expectations of both positions are essentially exactly the same.
We have another question from the chat, which is someone would like to know what a research proposal should ideally entail to get you intrigued, and in general, what it should cover.
That's a great question. To get us intrigued is the tricky part, of course, because every reader comes with a different pair of eyes and a different set of disciplinary expectations. So I mean, one of the strengths of the center is that we have both postdocs and faculty affiliates from a wide range of disciplines. We have fellows who are anthropologists, fellows who are historians, fellows who are scholars of literature and even performance studies, fellows who are sociologists, and all sorts of other fields. We also try to make sure that our readers are drawn from a range of disciplines, so that if you are an anthropologist, you don't get stuck with a bunch of totally hyper-focused historians who don't understand anthropological theory reading your applications. We want to make sure that there's a diversity of interest among the readers. But what makes an application really interesting to us? It's hard to sort of list, just sort of one thing that always works here. I think, you, on the one hand, want to, represent the research that you do, your dissertation and the book that you're writing, in the best possible terms. I think that often entails some balance between, talking at the sort of small scale of sources and archives, with the broader scale of talking about the big picture. What does this mean for Iranian history, or for the Iranian world more broadly? What does this mean for the broader Persian Gulf region? What does this mean for the broader Middle East? What does this mean for the world? So having some balance between the small scale and the large scale is usually a good aspect of the research proposal. Another, I think, major aspect of the research proposal that catches people's attention at Princeton is when there is a specific reason why this research should be carried out at Princeton. So for historians, this often takes the shape of something to do with the archive that we have that is available here at Princeton's library. Firestone has one of the best collections of 19th and 20th century Persian language print material of anywhere in North America. There's also a very deep sort of amount of material which is available in special collections for those who work with handwritten manuscripts. There are many other reasons, apart from the archives, why Princeton would be a good place to carry out your research. For some people, it's because of specific programs or specific faculty that exist at the university and various departments. For other people, it's because there are resources in the broader Princeton geographic region, meaning New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, which are particularly of value to their research. Essentially, only you can really know what would make your work fit best here at Princeton, but being able to articulate the case for why you should be here is something that often really helps to sort of bump up your project in the eyes of the people who read it. Finally, one sort of last aspect of talking about your research proposal that really helps people here, I think, see that this is a concrete and achievable research project is having a plan for how it is that you're planning to publish the research that you're carrying out. So for many, this involves having a specific book series in mind, or a series editor whom you're interested in talking to, and a kind of a realistic timeline for how you would complete your research during the period that you were appointed here at Princeton. So essentially, for many people, this means how it is that you would complete your research in a 2 to 3 year period.
There's a question in the chat that goes right off of that, so I'll ask that now, which is, you asked the research proposal to discuss the timeline of the proposed research. Is the timeline we're working with 1 or 3 years, given that the postdoc research associate positions are 1 year plus the possibility of extension, and the ARS would be 3 years?
Yeah, yes, correct. I mean, I think that, we are realists here in terms of reading your applications, and having advised dissertations myself, I recognize that in many cases, the dissertation to book process takes longer than a single year. Given that the PDRA positions here are renewable, I would anticipate a timeline that doesn't necessarily waste time, but I think you should anticipate a 2 to 3 year timeline for dissertation to book, regardless of whether you would be holding the PDRA renewable position or the ARS 3 years at once position. In both cases, realistically, many of our postdocs, when they leave the center, have aspirations of completing their book manuscripts in the periods that they're here. But even if they don't, we hope that they're well on their way towards publishing their books when they finish up the postdoc year. And so it's good in the timeline to be realistic. You don't say that you're going to get here in fall of 26, publish your first book in spring of 27, your second book in fall of 28, and your next book in spring of 27. What, I've got the years mixed up. But you're not going to publish. The vast majority of people are not going to publish more than a book or two, in their time at a postdoc. And so don't be over ambitious in the timeline that you're proposing. Any other questions? Feel free to either ask them in the chat or by or.
I have a question. Do you have my voice?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is Hamad.
Yeah. Thank you for your explanation. I have two questions. First is that we have one item that CV and list of publications you had, but for upload the files, we have two separated file. CV is separated from a publication list.
I see.
I mean, I should copy the publication list from CV to another file, and
I think that if your CV already includes your publication list, as most people's do, you can just upload the same file in both locations. I think this is, one occasionally gets, an applicant who interprets CV, just to mean sort of educational experience. So this is to make sure that publications are also uploaded in that process.
Thank you. And another question is about the sample writing, right? Sample, and I want to know that in this sample chapter, I have an extended summary for one of my essays, and it's accepted for journal and have DOI,
Right.
but there is no pages till now. Can I upload that extended
Yes.
summary?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a few journal advisory boards too, and I would, we're congratulations, if your publication has been accepted. But yeah, we're very happy to read, preprints or proofs or any of the sort of stages which precede the ultimate publication of your piece. We understand that the process of submitting a journal article often takes a very long time, having the acceptance is a big thing. So yeah, no, of course we're happy to read, even if the page numbers aren't finalized. That's very frequently the case with these kinds of things. So yeah, please do submit that.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
I have another question in the chat, which is about the cover letter. It says, should the cover letter be a standard one summing up qualifications and experiences so far, or is it just a title and summary of the proposed research project, the 200 words that is stated on the website?
The cover letter should be sort of the standard format. I know that we say 200 words, which on the website, which I understand is probably short for what most people expect a cover letter to look like these days. My own inclination is that if you go over the 200 words in the cover letter, that's fine. But a cover letter should. What we tell our own graduate students basically is that a cover letter should be basically no longer than 2 pages. It can be of the standard cover letter format. You don't need to go well out of your way, crafting an entirely new application document just for this postdoc. Please use the document templates that you've used for other postdocs and for other jobs. We're more than happy to read about your educational experience and whatever you choose to convey in that cover letter. But don't make it too long. That's essentially what I'm getting at here.
Just to clarify too, because I've gotten this question in emails as well sometimes, which is the cover letter is separate from the research statement, those two things. Okay.
Yes, the cover letter is separate from the research statement. This is in part to give you the space to actually talk about your research in a separate document, so that you don't, have to just over abridge what your research is, so that it can sort of get squeezed into the cover letter. So in other words, these are separate documents. Your cover letter can talk about things, more broadly than your research statement. You can talk a little bit about your academic journey in your cover letter. That's not something that's normally done in a research statement. You can talk, a bit about the kinds of experiences that you had in graduate school, teaching experiences, and so on. Even though, again, this is not a teaching postdoc, we are very much committed to making sure that our postdocs move on to be as well prepared for the careers that they would like to pursue as possible in leaving the postdoc. And so in that respect, if you're someone who takes a strong interest in pedagogy, we want to support you while you're here in that. So yeah, I mean, these kinds of things can go in a cover letter.
I kind of view the cover letter, the 200 portion, as an abstract of the research proposal, but correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but kind of like you're including.
I suppose, of the cover letter, if you want to devote 200 words of that to your research proposal, that's fine. And then the rest to the cover letter, sort of as it's normally structured. I think that cover letters overall, in terms of what I usually see, are probably closer to between 500 and 750 words. But yeah, I would say that in a typical structure, 1 to 2 paragraphs of that is devoted to the research, summary.
And then just to confirm, the research proposal is 1,500 words, about 1,500 words.
Yeah.
And that excludes like publication list, but
The bibliography.
yeah, the bibliography.
Yeah.
So the 1,500 words excluding that.
Yeah. And again, in principle, this is in part, an exercise in eventually preparing a book proposal for a publisher. They will seek a kind of similar description of the book that you're publishing, albeit slightly longer than 1,500 words. Are there any other questions about the application process? We'll be putting sort of a list of frequently asked questions about the postdoc application on the website. So feel free to refer to that as you move forward with preparing your applications. This has also been recorded, so if you missed part of today's meeting, you should be able also to view the recording. That's right, Allison. Yeah. So feel free to do that, to send it to your colleagues or friends who are also applying. Does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to ask while we're here?
Hello, Daniel.
Hi.
I have a question regarding the application process, actually. If we already submitted our application, but during the previous weeks, for example, we have new achievements, such as receiving a new teaching contract as a sessional lecturer. So in this case, what should I do, or how can I update my CV?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think, and this applies to anyone, and congratulations, I think, probably in order there, but that if things should change in any way from the period after you submit your application, please email Femke, and she will add whatever is necessary to your file. So if you've just received a new fellowship, if you've just published a new paper, anything at all like that, please just email Femke, and she'll make sure that the committee sees it when the time comes to review the application.
Yeah, if you redo your CV, I can go in and change it and affix the new CV to your application.
Thank you so much.
Great.
I can answer that question in the chat about where you can find the recording. This will be on our website on the events page, but since it's a past event, if you just go to events and then events archive, you'll see it there and it'll be uploaded directly to that page and you can watch it there.
Are there any other questions at all? I guess one last thing that I'll mention, just in terms of what can make a a really sort of how do you make an application stand out, is that anyone who has seen some of the events that we've done at the center can appreciate that many of the events that we do happen at the instigation of our postdoctoral fellows. So when you are writing your cover letter, or when you're writing your research statement, if there are events that you would like to organize as a part of your research, or as a part of the work that you do, please feel free to talk about those kinds of events that you envision, because one of the wonderful things about being at the center is that we have the resources to make some of these sort of big visions for events in the field, for productions of for exhibitions, for dramatic productions, reality here. A whole lot of what the center is thanks to what the postdocs bring to the center. And so, feel free, if there's a kind of symposium that you would like to organize as a result of the research that you're doing, to talk about that in your research statement. Oftentimes, these kinds of collaborative events that arise in terms of conferences and so on enrich everyone's research, not just your own, but the people who participate in the events too, can learn from your expertise. So this is just one more thing perhaps to keep in mind as you prepare that statement, to talk about maybe some of the things that you would do as a fellow that you would like to organize while you are here. Okay. If there aren't any further questions, I would say thank you very much for coming. I know that this is a busy time of year for everyone, that this year in particular is a very uncertain year, and it's a challenging time to be in Iranian studies, as I think everyone knows. So I'm just so enheartened to see this many people who are interested in the field. You guys are the future of Iranian studies, and it's our real privilege to be able to talk to you and to work with you. So if there are any questions that I can answer, please don't hesitate to email me. I'll do my best to get back to you. Things tend to get pretty busy, so I may need a few reminders if I haven't gotten back to you in a couple of days. But especially as the deadline nears, feel free to be in touch, and I'll try to do my best to get back with answers to specific questions about applications. Please also email my colleagues, Femke and Allison, if you have questions regarding technicalities with the applications or the kinds of events that we have. They're wonderful and very responsive, much more responsive to email than I am. So do be in touch. If there aren't any further questions, thank you all for coming. I do really appreciate it. I look forward to reading all of your applications, and we will, I hope, have many opportunities in the future to collaborate.